So hello, my name is Benjamin Crotty, and I'm animating a discussion among four filmmakers for the Pardi and Domani section for Locarno 2020, and I will let them introduce themselves and their films.
Hello, my name is Sawandi Groskind. I'm participating with the film Where to Land, and it's an honor to be here. Yes.
Hello, I'm Yuan. I'm director of The Cloud of the Unknown. This is
my name is Pardi. I made the music for the film, but I'm here to help translating for Yuan.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Lentzou, and I made the end of suffering a proposal. Good morning.
Hello, I'm Gabriel Böhmer, and my film is Push This Button If You Begin to Panic.
Okay, great. So I don't know exactly what time zone everyone is in, but it's quite early where I am, so we tried to get into the discussion. But I think everyone has seen everyone else's film, so you should all feel free at any time you want to also talk about someone else's film or ask any questions you have for one another. So when I was watching your films yesterday, I was trying to, of course, look for links in between them. And I was actually quite relieved to see that, I don't know how it is for you, but I see quite a lot of links between them. So one of the first ones I saw that I thought was kind of interesting to talk about was, I thought all these films kind of had this structure, a bit of this moment, like a bit of like a rabbit hole moment in Alice in Wonderland, where you go into this other kind of dimension of space or time. Like in Sawandi's film, I guess it would be the moment when this police officer finds this photograph of this woman, and we go into this kind of tunnel with these photographs of her life, and they're quite elliptical and then we're trying to piece it together. And then I think there's an intertitle of Tuesday in the film, so it seems like we're going back to this more kind of traditional, I'm shaking the table, this more traditional time, but it's not really the case in the film. And of course, in Gao's film, the whole movie is kind of going through like TVs and books and dreams in this kind of, kind of hallucinogenic way. And then at one point, the character goes into a temple, and there's a further kind of dissolving of space and time with the character kind of multiplying. And of course, the Jacqueline's movie starts with this kind of traditional beginning of this girl in the subway, and then it goes obviously into like outer space with the kind of intimate discussion. And then Gabriel's film is, of course, the whole thing is like inside someone's head. But there is also in this movie a further kind of rabbit hole-esque moment when the MRI starts and color comes into the movie, kind of in this Wizard of Oz-like way for me. So I was just curious if you could speak a little bit about that idea and how you came to it. I don't know if it's a little bit general, but it was something that intrigued me about these films. I don't know if someone feels the courage to start.
Yeah, I'll go first. Mine was last. I really like that analogy, the rabbit hole analogy. That's a good one, and I definitely agree. I guess I saw it as layers and always going down further and further, deeper into those layers, which was a bit inspired by how an MRI actually functions, where you get an output which is layers of the body. And so I kept trying to go further and further down. But of course, my main character is in this slightly absurd world. So each layer down is maybe a bit more absurd in a sense. And the more absurd it gets, the more his kind of serenity is important. Yeah, I think that's it.
Does anyone else want to speak?
I don't really know what to say. nothing was really conscious when I wrote it. I wrote the film first as I have a friend who's writing a book, and I'm really kind of jealous of people who can write like novels. And so I tried to write like a short novel. This film it was set in how do you say, first person, and I realized it was a lot easier to write because I have a difficult time writing scripts. I'm really slow, but when I wrote it in like me form or I form, it just kind of went. And I started thinking about my mother. It's my mother who plays the role, and I put myself in her life, beginning at the age of kind of 17, and then I just kind of went forward, and really didn't. I tried to not think about anything. I just kind of wrote it really fast.
Okay.
And then afterwards, turn it into like a more traditional script for a movie film. But yeah, I don't really know what to say about the concepts, really. It's kind of very intuitive. So
okay, because it's, for example, the intertitle Tuesday to me seemed really deliberate, and I was kind of curious about it because it's quite absurd in the context of the movie.
Yeah, it was just a friend of mine who made a film which I really liked, so I just kind of stole it. And it was a way to kind of, because I really was trying to figure out how to go forward from that photograph collage, how to just kind of land in some kind of ordinary day. And I remembered his film. He just, I think it was Thursday, and I was like, okay, you can just go Tuesday, and you don't have to say like, is it before or after? It's just like, I think everybody has a concept of weekday.
Yeah.
So if you tell somebody Friday, many people get a color maybe, or something like some kind of connection. And I just thought it was a good way to just land in something. You just have Tuesday, and people have these connections to just the word, or like a day or memory. So
it's a great time warp kind of device.
Yeah,
suddenly in it, I guess it's like what you were saying, Benjamin, that it's down the rabbit hole. Maybe we missed the rabbit hole itself. We say Tuesday and we're already in the rabbit hole. It's quite good. I love that.
Yeah, I thought it worked great in that movie. Actually, I guess I misinterpreted the movie. I thought it was like very cerebral, and I had this kind of like nouvelle vague read of it, because there's like this Godard saying like about like all you need for a movie is like a woman and a gun, and at the beginning like this woman has a gun. And it's also like a lot of like nouvelle vague movies use these kind of like, a lot of like Eric Romer movies use these like intertitles. But in any case, I think it works really like great in your movie. Does Jacqueline or Gal want to?
Yes, I don't know about the rabbit hole so much, because it started more as a joke, in the sense that, I'm really, all of my life I've been listening to some voices in my head. Not that I'm a lunatic, I mean voices that are part of yourself. And I think that's why I got very identified with Gabriel's film, like the guy and the thoughts actually. So I thought, how funny sometimes when you have like a great idea, or when you have an amazing thought, somehow you think it's yours, but what if it's not yours? So anyway, I tried to create a film about basically an internal dialogue of the girl, that in her despair, she somehow hopes that it's not herself, it's the universe. So it's like this grandiosity of the universe. So yes, this is how, I don't think that we go to another dimension. This is what I mean. I think that we are very here now in this film, but in her head. So no, somehow when you're in your head, you can go anywhere you want.
Right, of course, yeah.
就是Cloud of the Unknown 其实是我正在做的一个动画长片的那个概念短片。 就是它有自己独立的叙事，但是它同时也是这个长片的一个片段。
So this short film, Cloud of the Unknown, is actually a concept short film for a feature animation that I'm currently working on. But this short film has its consistent and complete narrative in itself, but it's also part of the feature.
然后这个它的故事呢是基于我的一个想法，就是我们平时做的梦它不是意识的折射，它是真实的，它是反映了一个真实存在的平行于我们的世界，然后我们梦到的其实是另一个时空中的自己的真实的人生。
So the idea for this short film actually comes from an imagined hypothesis of mine that dreams are not simply reflections of our consciousness. It's actually a parallel time space that truly exists, and what we experience in our dreams are actually probably the life of other versions of ourselves.
Okay, thanks. Let me see. Another reaction I had, which is perhaps colored by current events, was there's a little bit of a narrative to me of isolation or maybe problems of communication. Either the characters, like in Sawandi's film, obviously the character your mother plays can't communicate verbally. And I was just curious about, I guess in a more general way, if these movies for you are kind of ways to escape from the world, or like ways into the world, or ways to communicate with the world, because they're kind of like, well, Gao's film is like literally kind of like this dream bubble thing. And I was just, I don't know, I was curious about that aspect of the films. I don't know if this is too general of a question to
communicate properly with another way or with another texture of communicating. It's a different kind of communication. In my film, in the latest short, End of Suffering, I think the problem, if there is a problem with the definition of a problem, a premise of a problem, is that, yes, she gets panic attacks. And I think that you get panic attack when you think that you're all alone and you cannot communicate with anyone. And at the same time, you cannot communicate your problem to anyone because you're definite that no one can understand what you're going through. So it's like a disastrous network. And so, yes, I think it is something that I saw also in the films. What I saw most common in the films, though, is the idea of root and of belonging in a very different way. In a very different way in all of the 4 films. Where do we belong and what it means to belong and where do we come from? And this is what I saw as a common thing.
Okay.
I can just say it kind of relates just to the making of the film. Of course, since it was my mother playing the role, I thought it was quite interesting when we shot the film, because my relationship to her it's not bad, but it's not great. So, and she lives in a different country. I live in Helsinki, she lives in Stockholm. And so, and I had this film about kind of her life. And when she was here, we would only talk about, the weather and like, what should we eat? But then we shot the film, which was like super kind of personal about her life. And yet, when you talk about communicating, it's so it's very difficult for us to have to sit down and maybe talk about our life. But this was a way to sort of communicate, to make the film. And she was also super excited and really liked the film. She thought it was weird and fascinating, and she approved of the kind of things that happened, and like she didn't have a voice in the film, and she was like, yeah, that's me. I no, nobody knows what I'm going through, and and so that worked. And I think for me, making films is, you know, it's therapy mostly, and I make them for myself, and so yeah, communicating is difficult, and yeah, art that's why art exists, probably. So yeah.
What was it like directing your mother on a kind of day-to-day basis, and that communication? That must have been
it's super, you know, just very very simple, like put your head there, you know, just nothing. I'd never say expressions or anything, or nothing, just then that's because I don't know how to direct. I have no idea how to tell people how to say a line or anything, and that's why I never really use actors, because I'm afraid they might see through me that I don't know what I'm doing. So it's easier to just have, you know, your mom or your brother or your friend, because they're like, okay, it's just Sawandi, we'll help him out make this film. Yeah, so basically I just tell people to walk there and stand there and look there, and it's very simple stuff. So yeah.
Well, the result is amazing, so maybe more people should do that.
Thank you.
就是问题是可以再问题就是你的作品是怎么处理和世界交流的问题？然后你在这些作品看到什么类似的？然后你为什么做电影是为了怎么和世界交流？就是对我是因为是做动画，我大部分的时间都在画画，而且我本身也比较沉默寡言，但是我会花非常多的时间在视觉上，在这个感官上去观察世界，所以其实我和世界的交流可能是沉默为主，但是其实它也有非常多的信息，它不是通过语言的。
Most of the time I make animation, and I spend a lot of time painting. Myself, I'm a quite silent person, so the communication with between myself and the world is more like through the visual way. When I paint, I kind of communicate, talk to the world in a sensual way. I observe everything and put them into my paintings. Silence is a major part of my communication with others and with the world. It's not like delivered in words, but more in pictures, in images.
Okay, thanks. You guys started to kind of touch on this topic, but I was also curious just to know where the initial idea for your film came from, and maybe how it evolved while you were making it. And also if you can speak a little bit about just how it was made, like how it was financed. I don't know if, I know people are coming from different countries with different ways of, you know, making movies.
Oh, I guess I'm starting. Forced start. So I had some personal experiences that made me interested in healthcare, and all the challenges therein as a patient, but also as a practitioner within a system that might be fragmented or specialized in different ways. And it was kind of a way of just wanting to have a discussion about that. And from there, it just kind of began documenting the things I found interesting or bizarre or funny, or the silly thoughts that went through my head as I was making a cup of tea. And I wondered how maybe the MRI makes a cup of tea. On a finance perspective, I just self-financed everything, usually worked by myself, and just the easiest way for me to get on with things, because I'm able to change the story as it goes along sometimes, which was definitely the case with this one. The film changed a lot as a result of the pandemic, actually. The story was actually a bit different, and so I had to shift things around a bit and change the story as I went along.
Had you already started making it, or when did you actually make the film?
So I started making it almost 2 years ago, and I started animating it about a year ago. And so when the pandemic hit, I was about 80% done.
Oh, wow.
And I had to change quite a few things because there were some unintended parallels. Like my medical facility used to have posters up that said, "Come back when you're sicker," which, you know, pre-pandemic would be a strange thing to see in a hospital, but now is actually sound advice in a way. So I was in this situation which was very strange, and also the doctor's voice in the film now is my voice. It wasn't my voice before. It was the actor which did the rest of the narration. But what he was saying didn't quite fit in a post-pandemic world. In a way, the more cynical bits maybe got taken out, and so I was left with something a bit more honest. But yeah, it was a bit heartbreaking, and at one point I thought that maybe I should just leave the project and not finish it, but I persevered, I guess.
And sorry, it's kind of a simplistic question, but can you just speak about like physically how it was made? Because it's a quite particular.
Okay, yeah. So it's cutout animation. So
Okay.
everything is just little figurines. Actually, I have one here. The only good thing about us not being together is I can show you things. So that's Bartholomew. He's very little.
Yeah, it's
just
just
very
painful.
painful. So everything is just paper. Everything's just cut out. That's a Hayes saw. If you see a doctor pull that out, run away. They shouldn't be using that on you. And here's a ladder.
In the head.
Whoa.
Everything is very tiny, and it's just pieces of paper on top of pieces of paper. And I used kind of a mixture of cutout animation, general technique where I'll move things a little bit.
Right.
And some of it is more of a hand-drawn technique, but I'm not drawing, obviously. So the next frame is a new little figurine as opposed to the figurine being moved.
Okay.
And then there's a little bit of digital compositing. So if there's several things moving in a scene, I can move this first, and then I can move that, and then I can put them together.
Okay.
我做这个动画，就还挺复杂的，需要花的时间也比较长，是需要，首先是我花了很长时间去写这个长篇的剧本，因为我的短片是长篇的概念嘛，光写这个剧本就可能花了1-2年。这个时间顺序。
So for me, making this short film takes longer than regular because it's part of feature animation. So at first I had to write the script. So it took me like 1 or 2 years to write and rewrite the script.
Okay.
然后这个短片本身制作它倒是需要的时间不算那么长，是可能1年半吧。就是去画所有的背景，我是用油画去画所有的背景，然后运动的人物呢是用 iPad 和 pencil 去画的。
So for the short film itself, it took me 1.5 years to finish. First, I paint all the still frames with acrylic paintings on canvas, and then I planted the character in on the settings with iPad and Apple Pencil. So it's digital processing.
顺便一提，那个角色就是他演的。
And that's me in the film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, it's convenient because I think, like Sawandi said just now, it's more convenient, easier to find your friend and family to play.
Yeah.
然后这个资金做这个短片就是没有去找别的资金，就是自己花钱。但是如果我想要继续把长片做完，那个工作量就非常大，所以其实是需要解决制片的问题。但是因为我这个故事里面有涉及同性恋的情节，然后它在中国的大荧幕上其实是被禁止的，所以我们在本地很难找到好的制片人。我也是也算是借这个Locarno这个平台，想要能看看，如果万一有制片人感兴趣，也能跟我联系。
So as for the financial part, I just spend money on this short film. I didn't look out for financial support, but since I'm still working on the feature, developing from this short film, that's a big obstacle for me because the film tells a story about a homosexual man's story, which is prohibited to be screened in China. So it's impossible to find financial support in our own country. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I reach out like here in Locarno to see if there's any chance to find production help or financial help. Yes.
Okay, great. Is this the first time you've used this technique of with the acrylic painted backgrounds and the animation on top of it? Is it a technique you were testing out?
Yes, acrylic painting on canvas and then edit the character in digital way to the background setting. I made the sound and music.
Thanks.
How big are the paintings?
画了多大？80 centimeters. 80 centimeters. Multiple 80 乘40怎么说？
45 centimeters by 80 centimeters. Not very big.
Like this.
Very beautiful. How many are there in total? How long does each one take to make?
多久？只是加上是吗？2个和那个每一个加上是需要花半个月至少。
It takes about 2 weeks for a painting on canvas.
Each one.
Wow.
然后那个运动的数量加起来可能有600-700吧，然后每个图像可能1个小时。
For one shot, the like the movements of the character, for one shot, it takes around.
一共600多700。
There are like 600 to 700 of them, and each shot
1个小时里面
花1个小时画完。So it took her like less than 1 hour to finish one shot. So that's not.
不是 one shot， 是那个一个图像一帧。
One still frame. Sorry.
Wow.
It sounds like a very long process.
A lot of labor work.
Yeah. Jacqueline, can you talk a little bit about where your film came from?
First of all, I would like to say that listening to Gabriel and Gao discussing their techniques mean that I'm just behind the camera and I tell my cinematographer to press the button. I feel very lazy. Like I have a very deep, really deep admiration for other media because I think I'm super useless. I think it's amazing what you do. It's amazing the love in your craft and the time you dedicate. I think it's a level up. Anyway, apart from this comment, I'm going back to my short film. The first image that made me start to think about making this film is a very, very unique experience I had one day, summer day at the beach where I stayed there until very, very late. And I was in a Greek island, not in Athens. And when I looked up, I saw the sky, as we all know the sky, but at some point, it was not an imagination, it was a fact. I saw a very bright red star, and I was really seeing it. I was not on drugs or something. And I'm like, okay, what is this red thing on the sky? And then, funnily enough, 1 week later, at a party, I met an astronomer out of the blue. And I talked to the astronomer and I tell him, I saw this red thing, what is it? He says, oh, you saw it, it's planet Mars. For 2 years, Mars will be visible from Earth. I'm like, what? And I don't know, I had a very wow moment thinking that I had a chance without a telescope or something, a machine or, some equipment. I had a chance to really see with my eyes another planet. I was very moved. And I thought that if I can see it like that, then I can see it in general. So I tried to make something like a small documentary about planet Mars in a different that narration, fantasy kind of. So this was the first moment that made me think of making such a film about another planet, in a way. But then I left it because I had to work on my feature film. And then it came back in a dream. And then in 10 days, I talked to my producer, I talked to my crew, and we set out and did it because I'm very lucky that I have people that we work together all of the time. And about funding, there was no application, no anything, because in any case in Greece, it takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years to get a reply. So in order to make a short, it's a bit ridiculous to really wait, unless it's a very expensive short, of course. But this was not very expensive. The most expensive thing was the film stock that we used because we wanted to have 16mm to in a way create a different texture and to evoke past era. And the essence of the myth. Somehow nowadays film stock creates a texture of the past. So this is why we used it. And we shot it with our producer's money. This is what we did.
This is a kind of weirder observation, which maybe you do or don't want to talk about, but I was curious watching the films in a little bit the way like authority figures are represented, because it's kind of, I found it actually to be kind of comedic in these films. Like in Sawandi's film, at the beginning, the female protagonist's hut is destroyed by this kind of like police officer who like shows up in the woods. And he destroys it, but it would actually be like quite easy to rebuild. He just kind of like kicks it. And also in Gabriel's short, obviously there's this kind of like funny Kafka-esque like medical authority figures that he's constantly dialoguing with. And in Jacqueline's movie, I actually, for me, I kind of thought the universe was, it's like kind of new agey, the conversation they have, but I actually found it to be like quite authoritarian. Like it's, so I thought it was like a little bit funny as well.
Yes. The we know part.
Yeah, and it's this like royal we. And then in Gao's film, I actually thought it was, well, maybe I was seeing this through the prism of like someone who watched like the Addams Family as a kid, but this like flying hand that kind of leads her through this world. I actually found to, I don't know, I was just kind of curious about the representation of authority or politics in these films, and if it's, and comedy, and if you thought about those things.
我的这个比如说这个会飞的手套，其实我是自己梦见过，就是一瞬间的梦，就是有一只手光秃秃的，有一只手在拽着我往一个隧道里拉着我往一个隧道里进去。然后动画里有那么一个镜头也是类似这样的，我是从这个梦出发去给它一些变化。
Let's start with the flying white gloves. So it actually came from a dream of mine. I once dreamt that there's one single hand taking me into a tunnel. leading me the way into a weird place. So I developed from this dream to add more like transformations of the shapes of the globes and see what can do with them.
然后就是我其实不太去考虑它象征什么，因为对我来说，图像和词语它不是一定联系在一起，是靠我们自己去制造联系。其实一个形象本身，它如果活了，它自己就会吸引人。我其实不太会去想它的解释是什么。
As for the symbolic meaning or something, I don't think that as much as the meaning in the visual images, because I think the images can speak for themselves, and I don't see a definite link between one word and one image. When you create an image or something in visual forms, then it becomes itself becomes alive, and then the audiences can see whatever they see in the image.
That was kind of an important one for me, and also important to show them in kind of different ways. So the doctor is sympathetic but working within a system. The administrator is unsympathetic and quite ridiculous, and then the MRI technician is kind and makes him feel good in a way. And it was important to show a spectrum, I guess, that, you know, not everyone working within that system is authoritarian in a way. They're just trying to do their best for people, but the less people are considerate, the more ridiculous they had to be. So that's where the humor came in, and the administrator, the skeleton, had to be the most ridiculous of all for that reason.
Can Jacqueline or Sawandi, do you have anything you can say?
Yes, I would like to stand on the comedy aspect that Benjamin mentioned. Yes, it was my intention from the beginning. I think if it was not my intention, the film would be very dangerous in the sense that, yes, I really think that it's a very interesting idea, the all-knowing either narrator or the all-knowing God or the all-knowing universe, the all-knowing anything. And as a child, you know, I was brought up in a very environment full of anxiety, so I was absorbing a lot of stuff. So I always wanted to know. If you see my diary since I'm 6 years old, since I ever started writing, it was I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. So when I made this film and I wrote the voiceover that says very oversimplified stuff that we all, you know, feel, oh, but then you say, okay, we knew that. I really want to emphasize the word no. So I put the universe repeating, we know, we know, we know. And I think that it's not ironic or sarcastic at all. This was not my intention, but my intention was to somehow provoke to the viewer a small smile in order to remind his own self when he says, I know, I know, I know. Because at the end, what does it mean to know? What do you want to know and why do you want to know? You have just to somehow live and exist without being so infatuated with knowing. At least I'm talking about myself. I don't know if it's a general thing, but I think people with anxiety and stress want to know in general.
Regarding what was it? Authority. I think it's not a police. It was supposed to be a security guard who was coming like to clean up litter, and I think if anything, he represents more. For me, when I grew up with my mom, she was together with a bunch of, you know, not so good men, I consider her a very smart person, and I always considered the men super kind of stupid, and they never saw what she was, and many times, you know, with alcohol abuse and all this stuff, and I saw that as a child. I think if anything, they had some kind of authority as men, dominating kind of my mother, who was just compassionate and kind. And I think if anything, the film is about how life can be for people who are loving and caring, but not always how do you say, dominating, or not used to take space. Yeah, so it's more like a self-inflicted authority on her part, maybe, because that's how life can be if you're just kind of passive in a way. Not passive, I don't know what to say. Maybe you understand what I'm trying to say.
I was also wondering, in your film, well, it's obviously a completely different result, but in a bit as in Jacqueline's film, there's a there's a text at the end of your film, Sawandi, and I wondered, like, at what moment you decided if that was something you'd planned all along, or if it was something you came to like during the post-production. You know what I mean? There's
No, that was the first thing I wrote, because it's my mom. That's, people don't believe, but that's the one thing that's most true, in a sense, that she adopted her first son, and one day she called me, or I think it was send me a text, and she said, I'm not gonna say the band because it's ridiculous, but she said, my first son, who I adopted, I had never seen, is a bass player in a world famous metal band. And I thought that she's maybe lying or crazy, but there's some truth to it. And so that was a very important part of the film, her story about her lost first son. And I don't know if it's true. Like, I know that she adopted her first son, but I don't know if it's a really huge German metal band. I'm not gonna say the name, but she claims that the bass player in this band is her firstborn son.
I thought
and she saw an interview with him on YouTube, and she said, like, a mother knows what her child's voice. And I'm not gonna argue with it, but it is. Maybe I should make a documentary and try to find out.
It was fascinating, some of the scenery during that dialogue, the bats being tagged specifically.
Yeah.
I guess I thought of like trying to find lost children and
yeah,
maybe not keep them, but at least tag them, and so maybe let them fly out again, and you can check in on them. But I don't know if you had something you wanted to share about those bats. They were amazing.
I'm not sure. I was just wondering if people would, because we shot the scene where they're looking at something is shot on a different day in a different place, and the bats are they're on the same island that we were shooting the whole film on. And I was wondering, and will it cut so people will think that they're looking at these bat scientists? But that was also something that just kind of came up because on the island where we shot the film, it's very known for having a rich bat life, and there's a special bat that's only on this small island outside of Helsinki. I don't know why. And that's just a fact that came up when I researched the location, and I thought bats are very, they had a connection with the story because they have a voice that you can, a human being can't hear their voice. You have to have this instrument to hear their ultrasound, I think. And so that was one link, but I'm not sure. But as you said, Ben, I didn't really, or Gabriel, I hadn't thought about that. You try to tag something that's going to be forever lost, maybe, and that's nice. I didn't think about it. Thank you. That's the beauty of making films, because I try not to make conscious choices, but if you just write intuitively, people will tell you all these amazing things that open up the film for you, for myself. It's really, thank you. I'm really happy for that.
Oh, absolutely. The kind of dialogue and what other people see in things is sometimes the most fun thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps it's always the question of what you're working on now, if you're working on upcoming projects. And in a way, I really liked all of these shorts because I found them to all be quite beautiful and actually all quite, well, a lot of shorts, at least in France, you feel like they're really trying to be features. And I felt like all of these shorts were really being their own thing and very comfortable, kind of playing with expectations, but a lot of times not really satisfying them, or they were quite enigmatic in a really nice way. So I was curious if you all the logical next step for everyone is to work on features or longer films. And I was curious if that's your case, and if you're, how that's working out for you with the constraints that working on a longer project can have, or if you're working on just shorts, it'd be great to know about them as well. Does anyone want to start? Well, we know Gal is working on this. We know you're trying to work on a feature, and I wanted, because your process sounds very, time demanding a lot of time. Would you be working with a team if you were able to do it, or would you be working on it for quite a long time?
你这个长期的项目你会怎么做？是会有团队吗？还是就
我是希望就是有一个，如果有制片人愿意帮助的话，我是希望能有一个比较小的团队，也不要人多，还是要互相都认可的，而且也是一样的，最好是一样都是艺术家的人可以一起做这件事情。
The idea would be if I can find, well, with the help with professional production people, that are producers or production companies, that I can find a very small team, ideally all artists, so we can equally communicate and complete the work together. But that would be next step, and you really need to select what people to work with. And at the moment,
到现在为止，我做过上一个片子叫《Yuan》，然后现在这个图像部分都还是我自己，就是是。
So up to now, I have been working totally on myself on the visual parts, including my last work, Lunadial, which took me 6 years, and this work. So I've been working on my own, but I hope in the future there could be a small team to work together for the feature. Okay.
What about Gabriel?
Sure. Yeah, I'm working on something. I don't know if it's going to be a short film or if it's going to be a long film or maybe a series of short films. It's going to be called Brouhaha, and it's inspired by a story I read about these miners who are very devoutly religious, but when they go in the mine, they have an agreement with each other, which is that in the mind they don't worship God, they worship the devil. I thought that was such a fascinating concept of commerce changing someone's beliefs and all the different feelings and thoughts that would have to go into that. I will probably be animating it myself, since I seem to have this philosophy that the more painful a process, the better it is. Unless I find someone to work with. And hopefully I'll get the person who did the music for my last film, The Flood Is Coming, to do the music with me. So it might be some rock and blues in there, along with miners in a forest.
Do you think you would use a similar animation technique?
I'm not sure yet. I've done this stupid thing with each movie, creating a new technique for myself, and in a way I feel like I should try and employ this technique further, because I've stumbled upon something that I didn't know before, and it was only towards the end of the film where I began to feel like I knew what I was doing. So that usually seems to be my process. I learn through the project, then know what I'm doing, and then think, oh, I'll start something completely new. But maybe it'd be a good idea to do something that I feel like I have at least some minor competency in at this point.
My next step is to finish editing my feature film, which I shot last summer, and it has been rather hard for many reasons anyway. However, I have already started during the quarantine, the lockdown, have already started writing, not particular writing with the aim of making my writings into films, but writing in general. So I was thinking of just continue writing to see where this will take me, because I love it. And I also have another plan to make another short film, but for another planet. So maybe at some point I will have one film for Mars, one film for Neptune. And one day I hope that some planet will take me and I will be living in another planet.
Yeah, I'm gonna continue making films about my family. The next one is gonna be about my grandfather, who has been very, very important to me. And the plan is to make it a feature film. Kind of this short film was also a sort of test in kind of image language. I trying to develop something that I could call my own, but many of you will know that I have copied and stolen from certain contemporary directors, but I'm trying to find something that suits my kind of way of speaking. And yeah, I'm writing the script now. It's coming along. I'm writing together with a friend in Sweden, and the writing process is really fun, and it's going to be, I thought it was going to be like a serious kind of cerebral film, but it's turning out to be almost farce, comedical, about my grandfather's life in the 50s, and then it's also set in modern Helsinki. And then hopefully I have no experience in financing such a huge project, so I'm very worried. I'm not particularly optimistic considering the Finnish film kind of industry right now. I have my reservations, but hopefully we can make it really cheap and get the necessary funding.
Your short looks very beautiful and well shot and produced. Did you mention how you made it? Sorry.
No, well, it was 5,000 euros. So a lot of it went to when we shot on film and paying the small crew. And I edited and did post myself.
Wow.
But I'm not really sure if you can make a feature that way. Hopefully,
No, I
maybe.
think so.
But
very, very, very painfully.
Yeah, I definitely try, because I want to preserve the freedom I had making this, and it's almost a must for me to have that sort of freedom. But I, of course, know that making a feature is a completely different thing. But yeah, I'm just trying to make the script, write the script right now, and see if I can find a producer maybe to help me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more or less time. Thanks everyone for your films and discussion. All of your films I thought were really beautiful and nice to watch, and I hope you keep making them.
Thank
And
you.
I hope we will meet someday in real life.
In real life, yes.
Yeah, hopefully. It's my dog drinking water.
We should ask Locarno when everything is safe to, organize a meeting for all of us, a real meeting.
Yes.
Okay, so thanks everyone for your films and for participating in this discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.